You know the Body Break song. Can you sing the Body Break song? Even just the beginning?
Nope.
Really?
Body break. When the spirit moves you, you know you got that special feeling. It puts you in the groove. Feeling takes you higher, higher than you've been before. And that's about it. I know the music, but she goes up to octaves. I don't even
Oh
want to
no,
think of.
trust me, that's a lot better than what I remember because all I can remember is just the body break. It's moving,
Yeah.
moving. The first thing I guess to start off with here, Hal, is how are you? How is 2021 treating you?
Well, it's just you make the best of the situation. So it's not bad. Things are going well. I think what I always look at is that out of chaos comes opportunity, and so there's been a lot of chaos over the last year, and so there's a lot of opportunities.
Okay, and with that, like, what kind of opportunities have you been personally seeing? I know with COVID, a lot of things get shut down. I like your background there. To be honest, it looks like you're at a gym. I don't know if that's a home gym, but is that kind of like what 2021 has brought you? Like more gym time?
Well, this is our gym, but it's also our studio, and so we do a lot of speaking engagements across the country. But all those have been shut down because of COVID. So we're doing virtual speaking engagements. So instead of going virtual or thinking of it in those terms, a virtual one where you're using your computer to do a talk, I thought of it in terms of this way of it's a TV show. And so I've got a 4 camera setup here that I can switch between cameras. I'm using one of my Sony cameras off of here with RF microphones. I've got other cameras I can switch to I've got an A10 mini switcher. So it's and so I can also switch to the house, which is 200 meters away or 200 feet away, and I can switch if we have a camera down there. I can switch between the two to do nutrition there, gym stuff up here. So it's quite a and we can run video through our presentations. So our presentations have gone very, very well, and we've done so many of them because people are finding that when they want a professional speaker, professional speakers are not used to, let's say, a lot of them are not used to just talking to a camera.
Yeah.
And that's what we are used to doing, is just talking to a camera. So it's been rather easy for us, and it's been a good opportunity.
I feel like you've had a lot of practice with talking to a camera. Like, I don't feel like anyone has to worry about that when they get Hal Johnson on. It's not like, dude, is he gonna be okay on a camera? It's like, no, come on.
Yeah. It's pretty easy.
I want to discuss this because now this is where I find it so interesting. Because see, as a kid, and I don't mean with this as offense. Hopefully, you find the humor in this. But I'm watching TV as a kid. I'm home for lunch. I'm having a pizza pocket, not basically very healthy. And then all of a sudden, right in the middle of my show, comes Body Break, and I'm like, oh come on, right at the good part. You got to put this on. And like as a kid growing up in the '90s, you're like seriously, can you just choose another time? But as you get older and you go in and you go to like a university or a college and you even just hum that song, someone's like, Body Break, right? And I'm like, yeah, like it's weird because I've never sat down and as a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old be like, yeah man, I gotta lift some weights or I gotta go out and snowshoe. But it's just stuck in your mind. And then when you go back and watch it now for nostalgia, you're like, man, I can use this now as a 29-year-old.
Yeah, it's been a lot of things we did kind of were timeless, but it was really showing people that they can live a healthy, active lifestyle, and it was and showing that it doesn't matter who you are, what your ability is, what your disability might be, what your ethnicity, what your gender. We can all live, work, and play together, and that was really the impetus and the idea of the show. So it's pretty simple. It for us, it's stood the test of time, and so it's interesting when people go back now to our YouTube channel and check it out and see our 300 or so Body Break episodes, and we're putting new things on there now as well as the old stuff.
Yeah, look, and it's so interesting because again, with this podcast, sometimes when we have people that come on, overcoming obstacles or with disabilities, like to imagine that yes, it is kind of Canadian pop culture, but it almost didn't come to be because doing a bit of research, there's like 40 companies that said no, we're not going to put this on. There was times that when you wanted to do again beyond camera roles, they would tell Joanne like, can we replace Hal with someone else just because of like the racism that comes with it? Like, explain this a little bit of like, I know obstacles are hard to overcome, but during this time frame, did you ever think this isn't going to come to be, this isn't going to like make it to air? Were there times that you even said to Joanne, like, listen, if they want me out, that's cool? Like, how did this all affect you?
Not at all. I would say not at all. It's really one of those things where on June 8th of 1988, when I came up with the idea and the concept, and I mulled it over with Joanne, and I said, "What do you think of this idea?" And I said to her on that afternoon, 4:30 in the afternoon, I said, "This is going to change your life." And she said, "Oh, yeah, okay." And I said, "Do you have $2,000? Because I think that's what we need to put this together." And so she says, "Well, I can scrape it up." And so we both scraped it up. But at no point did I ever think it wasn't going to succeed. Like it was like, it's going to happen. And I know it's going to happen. And so that's where I just, I don't know why I had such a belief in it, but the idea, the concept, the simplicity of it, I thought it's gonna work, and I was never ever discouraged. And so it's funny when young people come up to me now and they ask me, I've got this idea, what do you think of this, and so on, and they want to do something in business or whatever. As I get older, you start to get more negative. You start to see all the pitfalls.
Yeah.
When you're younger, you don't see them, and you just kind of go, "Hey, I was so focused, I didn't see any of the pitfalls." And people saying no, I just said, when people would say no, I would often think, "Gee, I guess I just haven't explained it well enough."
Yeah.
Or they haven't got my vision that I've put together here. So I've got to work on my explanation and really get my, they call it now, elevator pitch. I've got to give it to them in a rather, I've got to fine tune it and hone it. And we did, after meeting after meeting after meeting, we did after so many, being turned down so many times.
I like your answer there because it's like, as podcasting, when I send out requests to acts, and I'm sure like I call it falling victim to my emails. It's almost like, geez, you didn't reply right away. I'm not taking no though. Like, it's like, okay, let's try this again. But like, sometimes you'll email an act of like, it's not in the cards, and I'll be like, instead of going, okay, I'm like, wait, why isn't it in the cards? Can you explain what's going on that they can't do the interview? Or like, it's just in my mindset, like, you don't know if they're busy. And in terms of when you're saying you don't see the pitfalls or like what obstacles could overcome, we got a couple kids out back here, like you can't see it because I got the curtains closed because I didn't want them to interfere, but it's like they're climbing on wood, snow covered wood. And like, in my mind as a kid, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna jump off this for fun. But as an adult, you're like, geez, they could break an arm, the wood can move. But they don't care. They're just like, this is the high point, what could go wrong? So it's fun in an aspect to have that kind of vision that, what could go wrong, let's try it. Because, pure example, if you just quit right off the hop or the first obstacle that comes up, you're like, that's it, you don't get to be where you're to right now.
Well, if you look at things like they're hurdles as opposed to walls, it's going to be a lot easier in your life. So there's always a way. And I think that's the thing that I would look at and encourage people to look at, is that there's always a way. You just have to figure it out. And so that's like, that's what I look at, is that, if there's always a way to do something. And so how are you going to do it? And most people are going to tell you no. And most people are going to say you can't do it. And the reason why they're going to say you can't do it is because they think they can't do it. So how could you do it if they can't?
Yeah.
So it's and I guess that's a gift. I don't listen to most people, and that's it can't be a gift and a curse. And it's and surround yourself with people that encourage you that you can do things as opposed to those that will pull you down.
Now, like, and I kind of guess, like, growing up, you grew up in Philadelphia.
No,
Um,
no, I grew up in Toronto. I was
born in,
born in Newark, New Jersey, but I
okay.
grew up at 6 months old. My mom told my dad, she goes, "We're moving back. We're moving to Canada because the United States is too racist, and we got to." She didn't want me to be grow up in the States.
No, okay, no, fair point, because that's kind of what I wanted to kind of get into here with, when you were building on Body Break. Like, I'm really surprised because the amount of team captains you are with, like, it says baseball, basketball, hockey. I'm like, there had to be, just facing adversity even at that age, not only with racism, but anytime you're named captain of any sport, whether, no matter the ethnicity, there's always going to be kids that are like, well, why is he captain? Why does he get to wear the C?
I when I look back on it, I had a great childhood. Like I certainly can't complain in any respect. I grew up in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood. Um, most of my buddies were Jewish. It didn't matter. I went to a lot of bar mitzvahs. Like it just didn't matter. Like what you were.
Yeah,
Um, I I never got bullied ever. Being 6'3", 230 pounds helps.
kind of hard to
Um,
bully that. Kind of hard.
yeah, it's I was always the biggest kid, so and all I wanted to do was play, and I wasn't, and I'm not an aggressive person in terms of that. In terms of I deplore people that are bullies, but yeah, I had a great childhood growing up, and the only place that I would find growing up really racism as a kid that I noticed it was playing hockey with the other teams, and so which I could never understand why the other team would call me names. I couldn't figure that out because a guy who was let's say 5'7" and 150 pounds, and at the time I was like 6 feet 200 pounds, and he would start calling me names, and I'd think, why are you doing that? Like, I can crush you. Like, I couldn't understand that. So I led the league in fighting almost every year because of that. Almost every game I was called a racial slur, but that was just part of playing.
So, like, I'm kind of interested, a little bit off topic though, but where you brought it up, it's like, did you ever go to like a coach about this, or like to like a parent, and like kind of say like, the reason that I'm always in the penalty box is because of this. It's not like I enjoy fighting. I'm fighting because
No,
they're out here calling me
no.
stuff.
Everybody, again, it's not the 2020s. Everybody knew it. I mean, you could hear it throughout the rink. I mean, I had parents calling me names from the stands. So it was no surprise. Like I didn't have to explain it to anybody what was going on. The bigger the game, the more the slurs. I mean, but hockey was the only sport that I ever faced that. Football, baseball, basketball. Never once did anyone ever utter any racial slur towards me in any respect. But hockey was constant, and that's why I find it funny, and I love hockey. I built a rink out back here. I still play it now, but it is kind of endemic with the culture of hockey that growing up. And so it was a very unfortunate game I love, but it was very endemic with the sport.
Do you find, like, I do want to get back into, like, again, about your career, but it's just an interesting topic here as well, is, do you find now with the shift in NHL where you have like a Hunter Ryan Singh on a broadcast, or you see more female anchors being included in like post game scrums, even getting to anchor, and with I think it's like Quentin Byfield now going number 2 in the draft, and there's more kind of Black players in the NHL. Do you find that all this is like progressively getting, I know there's still probably some racism involved in this, but do you find that it's getting, I guess, in a better direction, or going kind of as a positive, that, these athletes kind of come out and explain it? There's more voice, I guess, rather than them being shut out or quiet. They're actually getting a voice.
Yeah, I mean, things have changed absolutely, but what you have to realize is Don Cherry has only been gone what, about a year and a half. It took that long to get rid of that dinosaur.
Yeah.
Don Cherry to me epitomizes hockey, and so if you think of what Don Cherry represents, a Trump supporter, you realize what he thrust upon us. He epitomized the culture of hockey.
Yeah.
And so, and that's why he was around so long. And until you get rid of the Don Cherries of the world, you're not going to get rid of that attitude. And that's where, like, when people say, when he was saying, for example, all those Swedes, those chicken Swedes, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Or those Americans, or whoever it is, you have to think of that as put something else into that place, and it becomes offensive. So if he's saying, oh, those chicken Blacks, or those chicken French, or those chicken whatever.
Oh, he's called French. He's called French out. Don't worry.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. But so it really comes down, and there's a poem that was a very famous poem, the Holocaust, and it was basically something that they came after the communists, and I wasn't a communist, so I didn't care. They came after the Marxists, and I'm not a Marxist, and I didn't care. When they came after me, there was no one to say anything.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think that you have to stick up for other people. And so I was always offended when he would talk about others and putting them down to put Canadians up. And so I don't think you should stand on other people's shoulders in order to make yourself feel taller. And I think that's where I was always very offended. And I've always spoke out against Don and his attitude. And I think the parallels between what Trump, that underlying, but now it's very overt. Finally, people are realizing the racism is that it was always that way coming across to me as a viewer watching Hockey Night in Canada.
And sometimes, like, I find too, like, you don't really experience it or see it until you actually get older. Like, because I know as a kid at Christmas, you'd get like the Rock'em Sock'ems. You're looking at, like, for me, someone that's 10 or 12 that likes the Detroit Red Wings. I know they're bad right now, but I would be watching that for like the playoff series or the biggest hits, and like not really paying attention to the commentary. But as you get older, you start to pay attention to the commentary, and in your mind, like, you know the difference between right and wrong. Of if they showed you a top 10 coach's corner and he's like smacking Ron McLean with an elbow pad and going like, see, this is what the French don't have. They're soft, blah, blah. And then you're like, I know it's wrong. I'm not going to say it, but whatever. Let's just skip past that. But like, then when it comes to the point where you get to a little bit more educated, a little bit more, I guess, I'm coming from Newfoundland. So to be honest, we don't get a lot of different ethnicities at this time. Like, yeah, they're coming in now, but at the time it is what it is. So you look around and you're like, okay, I'm not going to say it. I know it's wrong, but when am I going to ever get the chance to really kind of express this kind of opinion? And then when you get older and you go to, I went to like University up away in Ontario. So I did start to see these other cultures, and I'm like, oh geez, like you actually see it face to face, like, because you don't see it when a person's saying it on camera, but when you see someone's eyes or see how hurt they are by these comments, you're like, okay, like never really noticed this. Now that I do, I think it's time to kind of maybe like look at it a different way, or maybe say, okay, let's try to make things a little bit better. And I do find that sometimes, like, I want to get back a little bit to this as well, because when you're looking at TSN, for example, now, and they have Jermaine Franklin, and they do this, I'm not going to call it a PR stunt per se, because I think it's genuine, but it's like they'll show Jermaine Franklin of, he's now on the sports desk, and they show a high school picture of when I was high school. I said I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. I'm like, okay, that looks good now, but back then, if we tried putting this commercial back in 1999, and it's basically like, hey, this guy didn't make it to TSN, but here's what happened. You're like, oh well, why didn't he make it to TSN? Let's examine this, because I heard that you were going to TSN, but they said more or less like, we don't want two black anchors or two black reporters. At the time, how did that make you feel?
I thought I was disappointed, but I just thought, well, I'm gonna do my own thing, and that's basically what I did. Is shortly after, that's when I came up with the idea and concept of Body Break. So it was disappointing, but and I know TSN reached out to me. Natalie Cook, one of the vice presidents of TSN, reached out to me and wanted to apologize and all of this other stuff. And I said, no need to apologize.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of what they went ahead and did that, because I understand Bell Media, they need to politically make it look good, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because they went, things went crazy. But I said to them, well, what are something I can do now with TSN to make things better? Meaning not to make things right for me.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm good. But how can I further this conversation and help this along? And basically they said, we'll get back to you on that one. And haven't heard in 6 months. So I'm not certainly not going to hold my breath.
It's so this is kind of like the interesting thing for me, because it's like the cynic inside of me as older. Like, again, I'll come at it from full perspective. I'm a person with disability. I've applied for like jobs all over, and like you don't really get the reason why you don't get an interview. Like, it's not like they're ever going to outright come out and say, well, geez, you have a disability, because they know they can't come out and say that. But you do get frustrated. So I feel like when sometimes these firms like Bell, Rogers, whoever reaches back out and says, oh my God, we're so sorry, like, how can we make it better? And then you tell them, listen, like, I'm not in this just for me. I want the next generation behind me to get these same opportunities. And when they're like, sounds good. And then you're like, okay, where are we going? It's like dead. So I'm like, okay, like, fair enough. But I bring that up just because I do see with TSM, with Sportsnet and others, like, you do see a lot more ethnicities get involved. You do see, even with CBC, they now have a new like nightly talk show with a different ethnicity. I'm like, a part of you is like, that's great, but it's great for them. But on the other side, I'm like, okay, where's the disability side? Like, how come you don't have someone coming out in a wheelchair reading the news, or someone that's maybe like, again, I know with you have dyslexia, but you don't see a person on CBC ever do a promo saying, hey, I'm Rosemary Barton, or I'm Andrew Chang, and like, there was a time that I had dyslexia, but look how far I made it now. And that to me is kind of like a little bit troubling to not know that.
Well, when I came out with my video in the summer about my experiences of creating Body Break and racism, and one very positive, I want to be very positive about it in a sense, is that I did 66 interviews in the space of a little over 8 to 9 days. I was interviewed out. I was exhausted. But I did a lot of radio interviews with Sportsnet and radio, as well as TSN radio. I did every TSN radio station in the country. And I asked these sports radio hosts were talking about racism, and I would say to them about persons with disabilities. I would ask them. I would say, "Are you sitting in your chair?" And I know that they're sitting in there. And I said, "So someone in a wheelchair could do your job?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, why isn't there that, to my knowledge, does TSN have anybody in their radio on their as an announcer who's in a wheelchair?" And so they, well, I don't know. I said, well, that's where things have to start. Things that that you've got to put persons with disabilities, because I said a person in a wheelchair can do the exact same job that you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. And I remember I said on one thing, I said, I bet you they would probably do as good, if not a better job, because they're going to work harder. They're going to work harder and do more research and be more grateful for the opportunity than someone who almost expects to. This is the opportunity. That's why often, whenever I've seen a woman pilot get on a plane, and the woman is piloting our flight, or she's the co-pilot or the pilot,
Yeah.
I feel at ease, because I know that woman, to get to where she is, has had to work so hard and so diligent, and has thought that she's had a lot of detractors. So she is probably at the top of her class, both mentally and emotionally, in terms of being able to cope with things. So I go, oh, we got a good pilot today. Yeah. When I see a female pilot.
Well, it's to bring it back to what you mentioned there. It's like when I was in the radio program at Algonquin, like I was coming in with a background from sports journalism and a communications degree, and I was like, okay, this should be a walk in the park. There was a kid named Dean who was blind, and he was telling us a story about how he was a DJ, and like I feel bad about it now, but like in fairness, I'm gonna put him over the moon here. But it's like I was like, wait, how could a blind kid be a DJ? Like I'm sure I could do better. And then you see him go in on the radio, and I'm there struggling to get like a voice going through like a read. And I'm like, okay, I don't know where this is to, don't know where that's to. And then Dean just comes in and goes, right here. And I'm like looking at him like, are you lying to me? Is like, are you able to see? He's like, I can barely see. He's like, I'm partially blind. But he was doing it so much better than me that when I came out of that, it's like bringing your ego down from like, I'm so much better than you, to like, I can learn some stuff from this person, and he's going to be humble about it, because, he's not going to be over the moon telling you I'm better than you about it. So I was like, okay. But yeah, there are those experiences that I find when you go into these media outlets and you're just looking for somewhat of a relatability or someone that you can kind of look up to. And I feel like we're getting that way in terms of certain sports. Like you do see Sarah Nurse on commercials for women's hockey. You do see women's hockey kind of being promoted, and different ethnicities now with anchors for people that are in broadcasting. But I'm still at the point where I'm like, I don't see a lot of like Paralympics being on commercials, or someone in a wheelchair saying like, hey, I work for TSN Radio 1050 and I'm the afternoon DJ. And I'm like, okay, good. Now there are people out there that are with disabilities that are like, I want to be just like him, or at least I know I can get there. But until you see that visibility, you're kind of like, well, geez, where am I going?
Right. And I think it's certainly the way to shake it up is through money. I mean, Sportsnet and TSN and every media outlet, money talks, BS walks. And I think, if sponsors say, hey, we want to be more reflective of society, you're going to see that. I mean, I think every Canadian car commercial that I see now, there's either an Asian woman and a white guy, or a black guy and a white girl, or like it's like, okay, we have to do this.
Yeah.
And so they're mixing the melting pot like crazy, and it's fantastic. But I think with persons with disabilities, it's certainly not there yet.
Yeah.
And I think it's an opportunity. That's where I look at it, is that it's just around the corner. And it's just around the corner in the sense that people realize that there has to be more diversity. And I think that person in that boardroom that says, hey, yeah, why don't we have someone with a disability? I have a good friend, Lowell Taylor and Julie Taylor. They were on The Amazing Race. And Lowell's training to be a Paralympian in tandem cycling. He's blind. And they imagine being a blind racer on
Yeah.
The Amazing Race. Like it's he can see through a pinhole basically,
Yeah.
and Lowell talks a lot about overcoming obstacles. In fact, he and Julie are just starting their podcast about calling it overcoming obstacles and obstacles and opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's where I think persons with disabilities have an opportunity to you get into somebody in front of their face and tell them, hey, listen, be at the tip, because now you see, like right now, because of George Floyd and everything that's gone on, there's this resurgence for every network in Canada to say, hey, we're not racist. We're not
Yeah.
racist. Look at us. Look at us. And so I think that opens up the opportunity for everyone else, LGBTQ community, persons with disabilities, everyone, literally wants a seat at the table and should have a seat at the table. It shouldn't just be all white guys.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I found. And again, I kind of like to put things as in like the eye of a kid or the eye of someone young, because they're not really looking at it as like skin color or like what exactly the message is. They're just kind of looking at it as if like it's a little bit of a wholesome approach, because to kind of bring it back to the body break, like when I was small looking at these commercials, I had to do a little bit of research there that time, but like I've just seen you and Joanne, and then of course you do have background people, but in my mind, it never came to my mind of, oh, that's a black person and a white person couple, or that's two black skiers, or like, and even if you get older, you're kind of like, you might look at it and be like, okay, like, geez, it's not like the stereotype of what you think, but in a good way. I'm like, okay, like if I was a kid and I'm looking at a commercial, I'm like, wait, there's black people that are going skidooing, or there's black people that are like snowshoeing. A kid's just looking at me like, yeah, they're snowshoeing. But as you get older, you're kind of like, well, geez, I was trained on these stereotypes, but you kind of got to get rid of it. So I like how when Body Break, when you watch it as you get older or going back, I'm looking at me like, never noticed it, but that seems normal to me today. Like seeing if I go out in Newfoundland and, there's black people fishing or white people doing disco or like listening to rap music or whatever, I'm not looking at them like, whoa, like that's not your lane. I'm just kind of like, okay, big whoopee. It's almost like the opposite approach of, we actually had Jennifer Hedger on last week, and she was kind of talking about women in media, and anytime that they do something, it's almost like, oh my God, congratulations, like you combed your hair today, oh yes, or you got two women broadcasting, or she overcomes and she's now the coach of San Antonio for a game. Let's talk about that. It's like, or just treat it like it's normal. Like she's qualified. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, it's also sad that it's special. That it's
Yeah.
taken so long for things to happen. But I guess I look at it. I try not to focus on it. I try to just keep plowing through with whatever I'm doing. One of the things that you would see on Body Break, when people go to our YouTube channel and look at our old Body Break episodes, look at the people in the background. Those people in the background are not by accident.
Yeah.
They're there specifically. We hired them. We in fact had an agency in Toronto that was persons with disabilities only. That's all they extras for TV and movies, and we would go to them all the time, and I would hire extras, and they would be in the background of different Body Break episodes. So, for example, we're doing one in our in the restaurant scene, and you'll see somebody doing sign language to another person over my shoulder as I'm talking. So it's not a show about persons that are deaf.
Yeah.
It's about eating healthy. There's a deaf person in the scene. So that person, that deaf child at home who's watching the show and sees another person doing sign language, sees themselves. And I think that's what we tried to get across all the time, is that we would have, and that particular show, we had a person in a wheelchair next to Joanne. You just saw a hint of the wheelchair.
Yeah.
So it wasn't about, it's a wheelchair show and we're eating. It's that people who are in wheelchairs, they also eat too. So, and they have to eat healthy. So they are just simply part of the landscape. And that's what we were always trying to get across. And so we never, in a sense, shoved it down people's throats so that they go, oh, this is a racial show, or this is a show about disabilities. I mean, we did a fair amount of shows, like we did persons with disabilities water skiing, downhill skiing. We reluctantly did wheelchair basketball because that's that's the sport that's so that's so traditional with persons in wheelchairs. But we did a wheelchair basketball show. But we've done many different shows with persons with disabilities, and it was always we in our as producers. Again, the big thing is we wrote the scripts, did the editing, owned the show. We dictated everything. I directed the show. Joanne wrote the shows. So we dictated everything. And so having the control and power, you could portray what it looked like. So literally when we're doing a show, we wanted to tick off as many boxes of equality that we could. Now think about that 33 years ago when we started. You know, people didn't think like that at all. And so, but yet we did. And that's why when people go back and look at our shows now, and that's why when I came out with the video this summer about racism and, you know, showing if people were to go back and look at our shows, they go, yeah, I see what he's saying.
Yeah.
Because almost every single show, there's somebody different in there and you, as I said, we did that not by accident, but certainly on purpose.
And it's and I think you know, in kind of making not like light of the situation, but I guess light of it when you're watching it as small, like, because I noticed there's no mustache here. You're right, like that was where my mind went as soon as I seen, because I'd be like, okay, if you show me those commercials or like those ads or commercials today or the shows, I'd be like, geez, okay, like I'm seeing this big mustache here, and oh yeah, now there's the person with a disability. Oh, and there's that person. So like, I gotta ask, because I know someone had made a note out too, and I mentioned earlier that I was interviewing you. Is there like, what happened to the mustache? Why is there no mustache?
Well, the mustache used to be black, and if I had one now, it would be gray. and so I'm a low maintenance guy. So I can mess with it and color it, or I can cut it off. Just cut it off. And I grew a mustache when I was on Team Canada. And we all grew Fu Manchus when we went and played in Japan for the World Championships. And so the whole team wanted to look tough.
Yeah.
And so we all grew these big Fu Manchus. And then when I got back to the University of Colorado, I cut it off and I had a mustache. So I've had a mustache since then. And it was also to look older. I had when I was in my 20s, and even 30s, I looked much younger. And so my goal was to look older, more mature, more older. When you get in your 60s, that's not what you're trying to do. That's not one of your goals in life. I think I look old enough, and the mustache, it's had its time, and I've moved on from it.
No, I think you look stunning. You look like a great, handsome there man. I mean, if it was a gray mustache there, I'm sure there would be people there like, oh, okay. But I bring it up just because, like, when you mentioned about you don't want to be, say, 60 acting as an 18-year-old. Like, imagine if you go on TikTok one day or CBC's like, Hal Johnson has joined TikTok, and everyone's like, great, body break on TikTok. It's like, no, this is Hal Johnson doing a dance, and you're like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. But I kind of want to bring this up as a little bit of a light side to this, is when you do look back at these body breaks, when you look at your outfits, do you kind of like laugh at the outfits, or are you just kind of like, yeah, let's bring that back and let's bring it into 2021?
Everything that's, everything new, everything that's old is new again. And so things that are, if I had a body break, I've got a bunch of them, the old ones. If I wore it, it would go, wow, okay, it's colorful. And that was our whole goal as well. our whole idea of Body Break, from the music that we commissioned to write the Body Break theme song, to what we wore, it was all about being happy and come on and join us. And so it was always, we always shot on a bright sunny day. In fact, we canceled shoot days when it was going to be cloudy. We always wanted sunshine. We
Smart.
always, we always wore bright color clothes because it was happy. So that was kind of, that was our signature in terms of how we could, make a low budget show look expensive. We go to gorgeous places like Lake Louise. We shot a lot of our summer things in San Diego.
Okay.
And I had a condo in San Diego, and we shot our summer Body Break episodes in February and March in San Diego, and then we released them in May for Canada. So, because if we actually filmed them, we'd have to be like June or July before the weather was good enough, and the summer's almost over, by the time we get out to the stations. So we would do our summer ones in San Diego, and then we'd often shoot like a winter ones in the year, we'd also shoot the winter ones like in December, January of that year, and then release them in November of the following year, leading up to it. So that was how we often did it.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you did that. Like, see, to me, there's a lot more than just the Body Break. Like, it seems like you were like a very intellectual person when you're looking at this. You're looking at the colors, you're looking at the ethnicity. It's like, I'm sure at times someone will be like, geez, someone got to like calm down Hal. He's going way overboard into this. He's like really digging into this. But I like how you did that. Like, because again, it worked out for you. But when you were mentioning about going to San Diego to film the summer parts and, having the winter parts ready, I'm telling you, if you tried to film all that stuff in Newfoundland, you weren't getting off Body Break. There'd be no Body Break. There would just be like, this is Hal, this is Joanne, we're in Newfoundland. We couldn't film again today. So that makes it what? Day 200?
That's right.
What are we going to do? We're going to show, let's do another Skidoo shoot. And they'd be like, we've done 12 already, Hal. Yeah, let's do it again. So much fun.
Well, that's what we wanted. Our whole idea and approach was really to show people that when they would click in and you're watching your favorite television program and Body Break would jump in, we wanted to show you to come on and join us. That's what and so we wanted you to, if we're asking you to join us, that it's got to be something that looks attractive enough to join.
Yeah.
Whether it be going out for a hike, like if we're out snowshoeing and it's a blizzard and it's like gloomy.
Who wants to do that?
Maybe not. I'll wait till it warms up. But if it's a bright sunny day, you got the snow in the trees, it looks gorgeous. You kind of go, yeah, that's where I'd like to be in that environment.
Yeah.
And so that's what we were always trying to do is people at home and quite frankly, it was just Joanna. We had our cameraman Claude Garapi and soundman Phil Kawasoe and grip Joel Robinson. Probably for the first 12 years, that was our crew, and we would hire them for the day, and we go shoot 3 Body Break episodes in one day. So that's quite often what we would do. And it was a very tight ship. Dave Clark wrote the Body Break theme song, and Dave Clark did our voiceover, and he says Body Break with Hal Johnson and Joanne McLeod, and so Dave Clark is the voice of that says that Body Break all the time.
I'm just curious because where you're mentioning now of like who did different parts, like who was the one who kind of did the jingle for Body Break? Because no matter where you go, that still stays in my mind. I'd be in the middle of doing like an exam or in the middle of like taking a call, and next minute you hear the jingle, and I'm just still like, that's going to be stuck in my head. So I mean, again, good marketing, but at the same time,
that was Dave. Dave Clark wrote the music.
Yeah.
And he wrote it. And Dave said to me, he said, when we're doing we're lining the music up with the show, and he said, we said body break, and then he said, we have to introduce you guys
Yeah.
so people always know you, and so they get the name kind of cemented in people's heads. So it's always body break, Hal Johnson and Joanne McLeod. And so people would hear that over and over, like literally thousands and hundreds of thousands of times, because we were being seen 1,500 times a week on 130 stations across the country. So basically, there's nowhere you could go where in the 90s where you didn't see body break all the time. And the fact you didn't have phones, you weren't watching stuff on computers, so you're watching television all the time. So the concentration of the amount of Canadians that would see us all the time was phenomenal.
I do like it's funny to me because like when you mentioned over 300 episodes we mentioned like prior, it says from doing a little bit of research here, it says like CBC was the first to air it, and I think that's where I see it because like again on like Saturday mornings when you're watching like CBC Kids, CBC cartoons, or just coming home for lunch when you're in school, you turn on CBC to watch like say Little Bear or Franklin, and this is when you're like 12. No, I'm like kidding. Right. But ironically enough, and I find it ironic, you might not, but like TSN was the one that we issued it the most, and like I feel like I know you're not that type of person. It'd be funny if you were, but I know you're not. But it'd be funny, like, here it is that TSN kind of turns you down or says, listen, we don't want two Black reporters. And yet they're the ones that are showing body break the most with you. It's almost like, did you ever feel a little bit of sense of like, like you're showing my stuff. Like, it's kind of like, and that's what I'm saying, Hal, you're too humble. No.
No, it's not that. It's wasted energy. And it's the fact, just be grateful that they're playing the heck out of it. And I realized from a marketing perspective, they saw the need, they saw how they could utilize it and use it within their show. Now, really, the idea of body break and the reason it was played so much, and I found this niche and that's where I look at it as an opportunity. In Canada, the TRC, they required, we require in Canada 24 minutes of programming and only 6 minutes worth of commercial time per half hour. Yeah. In the US, a half hour show is 22 minutes long. So there's a gap of 2 minutes that I found. So there's a 2 minute gap. So when an American show plays on Canadian television, there's a 2 minute gap that they cannot play commercials. So I went and I got a number, a Canadian programming content number on every body break episode. So that show, so when I give it to the stations and they play an American show that's 22 minutes long, they play 6 minutes worth of commercials, which they're allowed to do. They have a gap of 2 minutes that they have to fill with something, with programming. And we gave them 90 seconds to fill free. And they played the hell out of it. So it was a benefit to them. They were benefiting because we were giving them free programming. And then it sufficed their CRTC regulations. So we were helping them out. So it wasn't that they're doing me a favor because they like me. They were doing it because it helped them out. And they were helping us out by getting the word out about body break. So it was really the win-win situation. And that's where I look at is that what we have to look at always as younger people, where's the opportunities? Look at the win-win situations where things can benefit them and benefit you at the same time.
What I would do is if TSN said to me, you're a sports, like a network that kind of turns you down or something, and they're like, you see them showing your stuff, there's like a part of me that would be like, okay, like you got to show me every day now. So it's kind of like, okay, I got one up on you. But yeah, like again, the more humble approach. But again, it just shows you that you were kind of more dissecting into this when you mentioned way back earlier in the interview, you didn't see like the obstacle or you didn't see like what could go wrong. Like you're looking at every possible pro when you just mentioned that they had this gap and you're basically saying, here, use this. like in my mind, I'm like, okay, geez, like what's the outcome there? But I guess in your mind, you're like, what could go wrong? Like they use it, they use it. If they don't, they don't. But at least they have it.
Well, yeah, but what you look at is you fill a need,
Yeah.
and they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart, and
Oh,
that's why I say, like right now with TSN, even if you were to go to them or Sportsnet or anyone like that, and say put a person of disability. It's not just putting a person of disability on network for them. It's how is it going to benefit them, and that's what you have to show them. How is it going to benefit them? And they can go to the fact that, oh yeah, we're doing this because we're a good corporate client, customer, and so on and so forth.
yeah.
But how's it going to benefit them? And that's really the bottom line. I learned that when I sold computer systems, and I being rejected all the time, and you had to realize, okay, I'm selling a product, and I think this product is going to help them, but I have to show them how the computer that I'm selling is going to make them more productive and make them money. Even though they're putting this money out for this product, it's going to benefit them in such a big way. And that's the difference between, and you understand when you're in sales, between features of a product and a benefit of a product. The features of a product, and oftentimes people sell themselves, here are all my features. But what's more important is here are the benefits. And so people get hung up on the features of things. It has, my new iPhone has a great camera. Okay, that's a feature. What's the benefit? And that's the thing is what you have to look at when anyone is marketing yourself. Market your benefits, not simply just your features.
I like that, and I like how that's. I think we'll use that there for the closing. Hal, it's coming up close to the top of the hour, so I don't want to keep you any longer. Was there anything else you kind of wanted to discuss? Anything that we covered or didn't cover that you want to just touch upon?
No, I'm good. I mean, if anybody, I'd like people to go to our YouTube channel, check it out, subscribe, hit the bell, all those like it, all those things that they say on YouTube. We've just started, and I have a goal. We just started on YouTube, and I think I've got 2,900 subscribers. And
Jeez,
so I said,
you're doing better than me. You're doing already better.
we just started. When did we start? We really started about 10 months ago. And so my goal at the end of this 2021 is to have 10,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. And so it's like I go, and I'm going to work away at it and have some fun with it. It's just a goal, and I've got a goal. And I said to Joanne at the beginning of this year, I wanted to get 1,000 subscribers. And so, well, yeah, we hit that goal, and at the beginning for the 2020, and the funny thing was, it was really the racism video that sprung us from about 600 to 2,500 in the space of like a week. It was crazy.
Do you find, like, I guess, because I'm actually interested in that, it's like, do you find with the changing of the times and like technology, like you have to kind of adapt the way you do body break? Because I know back then, like, you just turn on your TV and you'd see it on commercials, but now where people go into Instagram, Twitter, like, do you find that you kind of got to catch that? Because everyone's attention span is no longer this 90 minutes, it's like 15 seconds. Like, do you ever sit down with Joanne and be like, dude, how are we getting like a 15-minute body break in here? Like, am I just going to like lift a weight and say, this is how you lift a weight? Or like, do you ever think of like doing a comical video, just like somewhat of a workout video, but somewhat like trending? Is like, does all that come to mind?
Yeah, but I guess the good thing about us, or the good part where we're at right now, is that we're not certainly doing it for any financial benefit. Yeah. So because it's just for fun, so it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? We're not like having to pay our rent. Like we're retired. We're just, and so this is something Joanne looks at it, she says, you're just amusing yourself. You're just having some fun. And I am. I mean, like we have all of the equipment. We have all the stuff. I mean, as I said earlier before, I've got all this camera gear, the lights, soft boxes. I've got everything that you need to put a whole thing together. Why not do it? And so, I'm going to be putting out some new stuff on YouTube in the next month or so. It may gain a lot of traction. It may not. It may get 6 people watching it.
Yeah.
But and I guess whenever money is not your driving force, and with Body Break, money has never been our driving force ever. Yeah. Is that we always thought if you do good work and you like what you do, good things will happen. And
now you're just paraphrasing Conan O'Brien. I'm gonna have to cut you there. No, I'm like kidding.
Oh, is that right? I don't listen to Conan, so I didn't listen. But it's that, like, Conan copied me because I'm older.
Oh yeah.
That's because when you focus on financial, it's a spiral to I call it negativity. When you focus on doing good work and enjoying what you do, I know when Joanne and I started, we said after the first year was over, we said, "Wow, that was great. If we could do this just one more year and don't have to get a job, wouldn't that be great?" And we did it year 2, year 3, year 10, year 20, year 30. Now, I'm never going to get another job, which is so uplifting, and we're so busy now. It's crazy. So.
That's going to do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Hal Johnson for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening and good night.